The Fox and the Chickens, Chapter 1. The Fox Goes Hunting. In a faraway mountain village lived a clever fox. One night, while everyone was fast asleep, the fox crept down to the village. Using her super-sensitive nose, she followed the smell of chickens until she reached the chicken coop. She could almost see crispy, golden chicken legs dancing before her eyes. Today, she was in for a feast. She couldn't wait to get inside the coop, but then, oh no! The coop was surrounded by a fence with no little hole in sight. In that moment, all her delicious dreams vanished. She stopped and, feeling very disappointed, began to wonder what to do next. Then a brilliant idea popped into her clever head. Quietly, she started to dig at the bottom of the fence until she managed to make a small hole, just big enough for her to squeeze through. With some effort, she slipped into the coop and, excited as can be, pounced on one of the chickens. The poor chicken, under her paw, let out a pained squawk. Hearing this cry, the other chickens woke up in a flurry. All at once, they jumped on the fox to help their friend. The cunning fox, not quite understanding what was happening, had no choice but to run away. Even while escaping, the fox didn't want to come away empty-handed. She grabbed one of the eggs lying near the hole. As she slithered away, the chickens pecked at him non-stop. The fox felt hurt all over, but she was determined not to let go of that egg. Soon, the farmer, awakened by the noisy chickens, realized something was amiss in the coop. To scare the intruder off, he fired his gun into the air, shouting, "I'll catch you!" Before the farmer could get any closer, the fox managed to free her tail from the coop. The loud bang had frightened her terribly. Her heart pounded like crazy. Clutching the egg in her mouth, she dashed away with all her might. She barely escaped with her life, but once she reached her den, she devoured the egg with delight. Rubbing her sore spots, she whispered to herself, "Thank goodness for my clever brain." She hadn't gotten a chicken, but that egg was so tasty. Tomorrow, she promised herself, she'd sneak back into the coop and grab another egg without waking anyone up. After all, no one would notice if one egg was missing, and with that yummy thought, she drifted off to sleep, dreaming of eggs. The next day, the fox wandered through the forest until evening. Later that night, she told the owl all about her adventure. The owl warned her that her plan was very dangerous, but the fox wouldn't listen. When night fell again and she set off once more, as she neared the coop, the smell of chickens made her mouth water and her heart race with excitement. When she reached the coop, she discovered that the hole she made that night before had closed up. This time, she didn't want to take any risks. Instead, she made a tiny hole just big enough for her arm, snatched an egg, and scampered away. And the day after that, she quickly stole any egg and returned to her den. After many days, the fox grew bored of eating eggs. She started to crave chickens again, but with the farmer and his gun always nearby, catching a chicken seemed impossible. There had to be another way to get chickens. She thought so hard, her head nearly popped. Finally, a cunning idea came to her. She decided that instead of eating the eggs right away, she would warm them with her own fur, just like chickens do. Then little chicks would hatch, and she would feast on them later. Excitedly, the fox put her plan into action. She gathered about 10 eggs and started warming them with her fur. But as she waited, her curiosity got the best of her, and she even ended up eating a few eggs. Before long, the eggs began to wiggle. The fox was overjoyed. She helped the shells crack open, and soon her den filled with tiny fluffy chicks. The little yellow chicks started chirping around her, calling, "Mummy, chick, chick, chick." Surprised, the fox tried to say, "I'm not your mummy," but she quickly realised it was hard to explain. As she watched them sleep, she thought, "I'll eat you later." But when she came closer, she couldn't bring herself to eat them. They were so tiny that if she ate them now, they'd be delicious, but wouldn't fill her up. So she decided to take care of them for a while. After all, one day they would grow into big plump chickens, and that feast would be even better. The very next day, the fox collected some wheat from the nearby fields for her new little ones. This went on for a long time. The chicks started to grow, and every time she looked at them, her mouth watered. She wished that they would grow up quickly. Meanwhile, the chicks kept calling out, "Mummy," as they ran around trying to climb into her arms. One day, one of the chicks asked, "Mum, why don't we look like you?" As the fox tried to think of an answer, the other chicks replied, "We're small now, but when we grow up, we'll look just like you." The fox grinned and said, "Of course. When you're grown up, you'll all look like me. I was just like you when I was little." The chicks happily snuggled into her arms, believing she was their mum. As the fox dreamed of her future feasts, the sweet little voices of "Mummy" confused her mind. Spending time with the chicks, she began to feel a warmth she'd never known before. They brought colour into her lonely life, and she found herself torn between her old plans for a delicious meal and the new tender feelings she had for those little ones. On one hand were the plump chickens she had always dreamed of eating. On the other hand were these sweet little lovable chicks. Deep down, she thought, "I must not let my feelings win. After I eat them now, it will all be over, and I'll forget everything about them." The next day, off she went again to fetch more wheat for the chicks. But the farmer, who had been waiting for days to catch the animal that had been ruining his wheat fields, spotted the fox and ran after her. He nearly caught her, but when he realised he couldn't catch up to her, he threw a stick at the fox. The stick hit the fox's tail, and thought she was hurt, she managed to escape with her life. When the injured fox finally returned to her den, the little chicks greeted her warmly. Seeing the cut on her tail, they cried, "Oh, Mummy, who did this to you? When we grow up, we'll find those whoever did this and make sure they get what they deserve." "Don't worry." The chicks, believing the fox was their real mum, even wrapped soft grass around her wounded tail to comfort her. Watching them, the fox realised that she had no friends other than these little ones. Even though they were so tiny, their thoughtfulness melted her heart. She gathered them up in a big, gentle hug and softly murmured, "My dear little ones, I promise I will never eat you." And so together they cuddled up and fell asleep. And that's the end of our first adventure. Who knows what exciting surprises the next one will bring? For now, take care and stay safe.